show. No, Lay, I'm not going to keep you waiting. I'm right here. Although apparently at the beginning of these streams you can't tell what I'm saying. That's what I've been told. But anyway, I'm here. Thank you for being here, especially those of you who've already hit the like button. Really appreciate that. We've got a lot that we're going to be covering. Not only on the pre-show, we definitely have a weird mix of mostly awful news, and then also on the full show. So who do we have? Yasmin's going to be back on the show. Always good to have Yasmin Khan on. And let's see, we're going to be talking about some updates on Atlanta, which I have a few actually right here as well. That credit that I gave to Donald Trump yesterday, how's that going? How's that playing out? Well, we're going to do a little update on that as well. Also, yesterday on the show, I made a prediction, and not a prediction that's, would take like a year to figure out or anything. A prediction for what Fox's coverage would be that night. We're going to evaluate if I was right about that as well. So a lot that we're going to be talking about there. Also, Ron DeSantis getting involved in the education curriculum in Florida. That should be fun. DJ Hobo Kinetic saying, "Hey John, the red panda was from me. Glad you like it. We've won for 4 years now. I'd like to claim Red Panda Dragon." Really appreciate the red panda. Thank you. Really do appreciate that. It is adorable, and I can't wait for people to get back to the office and say, "Why is there a gigantic red panda on your desk?" But thank you for that. Okay, so we have to be a little bit quick about it. Still some production to do, but there is a few things I want to get through, including some quick ones like, for instance, you know who's awful? Meghan McCain. Even when she's trying to be good temporarily, still pretty awful. So she had tweeted out some support for the Asian American Pacific Islander community after the shootings. And I'm sure, she wants them not to die. But the thing is, we know the sort of environment, the racist, xenophobic environment that was produced over the past year and what contributed to that. And notably, as many people have noted, back when early on Trump was demonizing China about COVID, she spoke in favor of that, said it's an effective thing to do. It's important for him to point that out. So she was perfectly happy with that. So it's one of those things it's one of those memes of the reaping and sowing. So she was totally cool with the reaping. Sowing? I forget exactly how it works. But anyway, she was cool with it. But now, after people have died, suddenly, hey, everyone, stand together, support the community and all that. Well, that's good. That's better than nothing, I suppose. Not as good as standing with the community and caring about their interests before the murders begin, though. It'd be better to do that then. But we'll see. Maybe she'll learn. Maybe she'll learn in the future, and she'll be a little bit more conscious of the way that the right weaponizes racism to get their base to support them. We'll see. Maybe. Nickelodeon says, "Keep up the good work, John. Appreciate your channel." Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Hey, Tom. How's it going? Tom Twiddell says, "I'm scheduled for my first Moderna shot this Saturday. Already booked my flight for BGG in November, and I have one word for the 50% of Republicans who refuse to take the vaccine: Darwinism." Well, glad that you're going to get it. I don't know when I'm getting mine, but I am anticipating going to Gen Con, which has just been delayed until September, but that's perfectly fine if it actually happens and if it can be in person and it can be safe at that point. Going to be very happy to return to gaming conventions. Enjoy BGG. I will say on that whole Darwinism thing, we've got some video that we're going to show you today on the show that really demonstrates that concept. It's a little bit rough, but Ryan Nowicki says, "Do you believe voters would remember and vote against people like Manchin in 2022 if he obstructs the party and gives reasons for D to do nothing?" I hope so, but I mean, it's not like Manchin suddenly became bad. He's been bad, and he has been reelected. So unless there's a really good primary challenge, and even if there is, it's going to be difficult. I don't know. I mean, he's the awful way he is because he thinks he can get away with it. And I think he has some good reason for believing that. Okay, so we got through Meghan McCain. What should we talk about? Oh, here's something that's fun. So I don't know if you were on social media yesterday, if you saw this, but one thing that was going around was Biden did one of those things, sort of a version of Trump's chopper talk. Didn't have a chopper, but he was like walking around, and the press called him over or whatever, and he stopped and he answered a few questions, sort of stereotypical thing that a president will do. And he answered some questions, and that's it. Or is it? Is it that the president actually spoke to the press? Some people cannot believe that that is possible. They cannot conceive of living in a universe where Joe Biden was capable of walking and or talking. And so the theories began to spread that this was a green screen, that all of it was faked, that the microphones from the press were being added in post. All of this, for some reason, it is easier to conceive of how exactly was the green screen working? I mean, he's walking like towards the camera, like a long distance. Was the whole room a green? Was the floor a green? How exactly did that work? I don't know, but they believed it. They believed that was more likely than the guy walked and answered a few brief questions. And so we now live in a world where those theories, by the way, which are just a version of the QAnon beliefs about Joe Biden, which I hope that you're not familiar with, but the idea is that he doesn't exist. Either he's a robot, or he's a clone, or he's a clone of a robot, I don't know. But what he isn't is Joe Biden living and breathing and walking around. Somehow that's easier for them to conceive of. So that's the QAnon version. And then it makes the leap to mainstream right, and it loses a bit of the cloniness, but that's it. And now you've got a green screen Joe Biden. Even though, as those theories were being put up about the fact that the video was green screen, it was in theory undercut a bit by the fact that there were many different videos of the interaction from many different angles. Media attested to the fact that they were there. Now look, the fact that the media said they're there, that's not going to convince whack jobs. They'll say that the media are in on it because even if Biden isn't a clone of a robot, he's definitely being controlled by the deep state, which also controls the media. But like, how did the green screen work? That you're getting like 17 different angles. Was this like a Marvel movie in terms of its budget? And why? Why not just not do it at all? Why not do a sit-down interview, which would be easier to fake? None of it makes any sense. But the end result was that fact checkers had to get involved. And so Twitter had video of Joe Biden outside of White House is real, fact checkers confirm. And is that not just the saddest goddamn thing that we live in a society where stuff that is so obvious and shouldn't need to be checked apparently needs to be to reassure people, but our country's actually even a bit sadder than that because that's not going to fucking reassure anyone. Any of the completely out of their mind people who believe that Joe Biden was green screened in aren't going to trust those fact checkers because they don't believe in fact checking because they don't care about facts. So it's largely a waste of their time. I mean, I empathize. These are people who seem to care about reality and they want people to have beliefs that are in line with reality, but you can't make it so. And one little fact check being thrown out there that's supposed to compete against this entire environment, this context of right-wing media, where anything goes, it's whatever you want, that is a battle that is going to be very hard to win. So I anticipate that needing to be done for basically everything. I anticipate that the State of the Union is going to be faked on a green screen, or CGI, or they just stitch together, clips from Mars attacks. I don't know, but there's going to have to be a fact checker that's going to have to look into it, I bet. Ugh. Sorry, I think I'm losing my voice a little bit. Jess says, anyone notice the skull on the door right behind John on our left side? Yes, there is a skull. That has been around for quite a while, actually. Rob Shively says, hey, bud, listen up. This is very important. Happy birthday. Rob, happy birthday to you, man. Rachel Holt, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Rob Shively says, also, I'm claiming Lord Emperor Ass Butt Dragon. I see that you were watching the show yesterday. Julia says, Charles Booker has been teasing a 2022 run against Rand Paul. Any plans to have him on the show? He came so close in the primary last time. Yeah, we will definitely reach out to him. I don't remember, did we have Charles Booker on? I think that we did, but I'm not sure. There's some candidates that do these sorts of interviews and some that don't. I'm assuming that he will, and if he wants to, we would definitely have him on. Definitely. Okay, so let's go to something a little bit less annoying. Actually, we're going to stay on social media just briefly, but I want to show you something. I think this is a bit of my interpretation. You never know with social media if people are lying or trolling or whatever. But I believe that we have an example of like the thing that I want to see more that we never see, which is a person having a position, having new information given to them, and them changing their position based on it, or at least seemingly. Feel free to disagree. I'm effectively going to read you a tweet thread though, but it's great, and you got to stick around till the end. So, Mike Chen on Twitter tweeted, "The one thing I'd like people to think about today is how the model minority myth was designed to pit the Asian community against the black community. It's a tool of white supremacy that suppresses both, and it must be deprogrammed. Please read," and has a list or a link from NPR about the model minority myth. Now, responding to that was Liberty Matters, that's not what you want on that sort of tweet, who says, "I'm good. Is there anything in the history of America that wasn't a tool of white supremacy? Anything at all?" So that's a productive comment. And you know the sort of person that puts that. That's a person who, it's not that they don't think that these things are tools of white supremacy or whatever, it's that they don't want to. You know immediately that their beliefs are not reflections of a true curiosity being acted out. It's just, I want to believe what I want. Anyway, to that, Kiki says no. Nothing is not a tool of white supremacy. To which Liberty Matters says, what about super soakers? Because Liberty Matters is clever. And so Liberty Matters has come up with something that obviously is joking, but clearly is not a tool of white supremacy. Except that Elliot responds to that. Lonnie Johnson, the African-American NASA engineer who invented super soakers and Nerf guns, discovered that Hasbro cheated him out of millions in royalty payments by producing toys that were basically identical, but claimed they were, unlike Johnson's invention. So, no. And Elliot provided a source to an article about that history. And so this African-American engineer produced this thing in this company whose executive office was entirely white, was like, yeah, we want that, and we don't want to give you the money, so we're just going to take it. Now, in response to that, Liberty Matters says, well, butter my biscuits, look at that. Now, look, it is possible that Liberty Matters would be like, huh, and then move right on. And I will say that later on the thread, Liberty Matters responded dog calendars, because Liberty Matters had lost on the super soakers, but now believes dog calendars. To which Cops Are Absurd here says, take a wild guess at how the Gregorian calendar became the most used calendar globally, which is a pretty good response, by the way. And man, he's really not, he doesn't have a great batting average here. But I love that, well, butter my biscuits, look at that. Because while Liberty Matters probably didn't learn anything from that, let's keep it real, it seemed like there was maybe an opening. And by the way, whether there's actual learning or not, which should be the ultimate goal, just an acknowledgement that the other side had made a good point is itself incredibly rare. And that is, from Liberty Matters, sort of an acknowledgement that that happened. And that is not what I would have expected based on the earlier tweets in that thread, or especially just the topic that the thread was about. That is not generally a place where right-wingers are going to exercise a lot of, I don't know, compassion, manners, understanding, curiosity, anything. But we saw a little bit of it there. So I like that. That made me a little bit happier this morning. Okay, DDM Star says, John, do you have a cold? Take care. Yeah, I don't know. My throat's a little bit sore. I'm assuming it's nothing. Let's find out. Count Otaku says, good morning, Mr. Iderola. Despite yesterday celebrating a 1 Jameson on the rocks, 1 Irish coffee, 8 bottles of Guinness, I'm actually not hungover. Jesus. What's going on in your liver right now? And Jess says, is that a giant bay door? Are they in some sort of huge garage? I just noticed the tracks on the ceiling for the door. Yes, so there is this big sort of garage-style door that can open up for moving in like big equipment and racks and screens and stuff like that. Okay, let's see. Wayne, how's it going, Wayne? Wayne says, hi, John. I'm hoping for a shout-out for the 61st anniversary of my arrival in this part of the multiverse. Thank you, Anna, JR, Franny, Brett, and Jank for keeping me sane. This is my present to myself. Wayne, happy birthday. Happy 61st. Thank you not only for your support of the network right there, for being a part of the community. Always look forward to your messages, and I hope that today is an awesome one for you. Everything isn't necessarily back to normal, but it is slightly more back to normal. Maybe that makes birthdaying a little bit easier. And Wayne says, Wasabi D feels the love from all the dragons. Thanks. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody. Okay, Martin asked, John, when are you getting your vax? Do you know yet? No, I have no idea. I'm assuming in the next 2 months or so, but LA, I think, forget exactly, it might be at the anyone 65 or older, but it's definitely not any broader than that. I've talked about possibly trying, I've heard, as many people have heard, that some of the very big vax centers in LA, because we have smaller ones, we have these huge hubs too, they sometimes do have leftover vaccine at the end of the night that they have to get rid of because they can't re-refrigerate it. I might try and do that. It seems like a waste of time. It seems unlikely to actually work. Okay, let's see. What time is it? Okay, have a few minutes. Really fast. You know what? I'm gonna save this one for Yasmin. We're actually gonna talk about that in the show. But I did want to talk about the headline story, and that was that obviously Georgia had a horrific act of violence, a night of multiple acts of violence, and because it was a white shooter, and because the targeted victims were predominantly not white, you know that the right wing immediately, let's keep it real, they are on a spectrum of not caring, from 100% not caring to just mostly not caring at the best case scenario. You know that they're immediately going to try to just keep their heads down, get through it, talk as little about it as possible. But in this case, really, the response has been more aggressively defensive than I think we've mainly seen in the past. They have really wanted to use this opportunity to say that white supremacy doesn't exist, stop saying that race was a part of this. I would say that when a bunch of people, most of whom were Asian women, are murdered, you make it about how people are mean to white people as a argument for there not being racism is sort of a weird way to go. But that's what they've been doing. Now, there's a little bit more expected responsibility on the part of elected Republicans. They're not in the media, and especially if you're a senator or representative from Georgia, you have to at least pretend to care. You'll put up some sort of message that's really broad and vague and doesn't really say much. You'll do that. Or will you anymore? Apparently, you don't have to, because Marjorie Greene, who's now a congresswoman from that state, hasn't had shit to say about it. This big act of violence just happened, and she hasn't fucking said anything. And I don't expect much. But that by itself isn't the whole problem. It's what she was doing when she wasn't commenting on this string of murders targeting mainly Asian women. And what she was doing was trying to stop legislation that would help women, and in particular would protect them from violence. And I'm assuming other people are pointing this out. I really hope that other people are pointing this out. But when you spend the day after a mass act of violence against women trying to stop the Violence Against Women Act from passing, I think I know who you are and what you feel like your role in society is. But that is what she did. Now, it was worse than that, because in doing this, she didn't just vote against that, as well as other legislation yesterday intended to protect or aid women in a variety of different ways. She didn't just do that. She also, because she's a Republican since 2021, demonized against the transgender community. And I don't know how many of these quotes I actually want to read, but I got to read a few. Again, Democrats want to violate girls' and women's rights by destroying God's creation, male and female, putting biological men in women's prisons, abuse shelters, and extending them rights does not help biological women and girls who have been through hell. The best defense for a woman who is a victim of violence is a gun. Democrats refuse to support amendments to Violence Against Women Act that would help women train and arm themselves against their abusers. So what she seems to be trying to indicate to us that she would be in favor of, and I assume that she's lying, but what she says she supports is the damn Democrats won't arm these women when there are abusers out there. So the best case scenario for what she's at least pretending she supports is when your abusive boyfriend or husband comes for you with a gun, I want you to be able to return fire. Best case scenario. I will do fuck all to stop him from having that gun. But I will give you a gun too. You know, as long as it involves buying more guns, I guess that's okay. Now, if you do shoot your husband or boyfriend when he's trying to kill you, you better hope that you're white, because if you're not, then there's no self-defense or anything like that. You're going to jail. But if you're white, and if you're pretty, maybe we'll make you sort of like a spokesperson for the right. Like maybe you can go on Fox News or something. So that's what she's willing to do. Give women guns rather than stopping men from having guns. So that's what she's in favor of. And it goes farther than that. She accused liberals of trying to criminalize every church in America for not following the advice of the Transgender Coalition of Gender Dysphoria instead of going after real abusers. And she points out Andrew Cuomo. So Andrew Cuomo does seem like he is a real abuser. And the cool thing about having a consistent stance on men who abuse and victimize women is that you're not a goddamn fucking hypocrite. But she is, because she's like, oh, look at Cuomo. He's bad. Oh, by the way, Trump, let me grope this cardboard cutout of this serial abuser. Fellow new Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn, who's been accused of tons of harassment. What name so? That looks like nothing to me. So on the day where she is trying to make sure that women are still as open to the violent, predations of their partners as they ever have been, she's also pretending to care about men who abuse and harass women, as long as they're Democrats. Then it's like sort of maybe an issue. But if you're a Republican, I don't care. In fact, I'll sexualize myself to a cardboard cutout of you. But that's not the thing that's referenced in the title. The thing in the title is spreading Q bullshit. So all of this is Republican bullshit. And the anti-trans stuff is like very modern Republican bullshit. The Q bullshit is this. She said that one of the reasons she opposes the Equal Rights Amendment is it's designed to bring about abortion on demand up until birth and perhaps after birth. Is that what it would do? Obviously not. Does she care? No, because this is an opportunity you need to understand. This is an opportunity not only to appeal to regular Republicans that think that abortion is like the only thing that you're supposed to care about in politics, but she also said after birth. So after you've given birth, we will then, because of the Equal Rights Amendment, they will be able to come in and murder the baby. Because at the end of the day, this is virtually the only thing that they care about. They care about the trans community too. It's baby murder. Because the Democrats, you see, want to kill babies. They love killing babies. The only thing they like more than killing babies is possibly raping babies, maybe cannibalizing babies. But either way, definitely murdering babies. Murdering babies, hashtag QAnon, they're gonna murder your babies. That's all this is an opportunity to once again say, and now as a congresswoman, these damn Democrats wanna kill more kids, hashtag save the kids. That's what this is. It has nothing to do with the Equal Rights Amendment. She knows it has nothing to do with the Equal Rights Amendment. If she wanted people to be protected, she could support, the Violence Against Women Act. That would probably be a good idea. Because you know what actually is a danger to kids as well? Violent men that are allowed to buy guns and keep them even after multiple instances of domestic violence. You know what men sometimes do after or around when they murder their girlfriends and their wives? They murder kids too, actually. And so maybe if you would have voted for that legislation, you could have protected some kids, but not so much, because she doesn't actually care about it. It's one of the most amazing things about modern politics is the gap between the people who most talk about pedophilia and saving kids and how much they care about people who actually victimize kids. No interest whatsoever in pedophiles. Lots of talk about how pedophiles are terrible. It's so weird how that's worked out. And, by the way, getting through a day where there's been this horrific act of violence without commenting on it at all. And one has to assume, considering that was national news for the full day, that Marjorie Greene does not have a problem with those murders, because she couldn't be bothered to even comment on it. And bear in mind, she has the time. She doesn't have any committee assignments. She's got fucking nothing but time, and yet couldn't actually crank out a tweet. Now, she was tweeting. She was tweeting about the trans community and stuff like that, but not interested in tweeting about the act of violence in her state. Weird. It's weird. It's almost like she's trying to send a message. Maybe that's because she is. Anyway, whew, man, the news sucks today. But anyway, that's just the beginning. We got a lot more where that came from. Sailor says, John, you need to give Aquaman a shot. It's a far better and more enjoyable movie than it has any right to be. Shazam 2. I have heard that Shazam is good. I might. I see a lot of happy birthdays for Wayne. That's awesome. I did see part of Warnick's speech. Okay. No. So Zane says LA is at 65 plus or pre-existing conditions. So I don't have a pre-existing condition. So no. If I was able to, I think that I would know. I think that it would be pretty clear. I don't expect that to happen for at least a month. Kiddaboot Forever says, John, you're such a light in this dark place called news. Thank you. That's very nice of you. Rebecca says, I'm going to save this for the show. Well, there goes the D block. And probably won't actually make it out of the show. Chakoseki says, should we take a bet on how long it takes for Tucker to launder the image of the loser, Georgia Shooter, a.k.a. Creepy Beard? I mean, that's already been happening. I don't want to spoil the show or anything. That's already sort of happening. And not just him. Tom Twiddell says, LA is now in high risk, which is why I got an appointment. List of qualifying conditions is on myturn.ca.gov when you register as a checkbox. Thank you. Yes, it's still not for me. Maureen says, oh, but John, one victim was a man. No, I totally understand. That's why I say predominantly Asian women were targeted. I know that not all of them were. But thank you. Lady D became a tier 1 YouTube membership. Thank you for that, Lady D. Appreciate the support. Please enjoy the red panda. We've got some new emojis, by the way. There's a new JR. There's me with a big slice of pumpkin pie for some reason. But anyway, that's available, so have fun with that. Jay says, I've had both of my Pfizer shots. The rumor I'm hearing is the smaller locations where you can get your remnants vaccine shots. Maybe. Okay, I think. Okay. Lucinda, thank you for the fox. Appreciate that. Non-human humanist says, a story from Switzerland literally happened. Woman protecting herself from abuser was treated with ban from the country. Boyfriend couldn't be charged because no anti-stalking law, even years of harassment. Wow. Chubtoad says, I ran a program in a women's prison in OK a few years back. So many women in there for shooting/killing their abusive man. Guns are not the answer. Exactly. They talk about it being the answer because that sells more guns. They don't actually want men to be shot, though. The whole thing is about protecting men. Lucas Sear says, John, did you hear about Connecticut's new vaccine plan? Now there's no such thing as special exceptions for people with increased risk. I did not know about that. It's obviously, there's like 50 different plans. Doodoo Beans says, did you see the story where a stick-wielding Asian lady fights back against unprovoked attack? I did actually see that. Yeah, I don't think that we could play the video because it's local news, but I did see that. It's insane that, like, the day after, huge conversation about anti-Asian racism, some guy's like, I'm not attacking an old woman. Forbesilla says, so I'm a woman and a felon. I cannot own a gun or live in a house that has a gun. So does Greene want to arm felons? That doesn't sound safe. It's weird. Like, they would say no, because once you're a felon, they don't want you to have literally any rights. And yet, men who have had instances of domestic assault, until they're locked up, they want them to be armed. People who are on the terrorism watch list, they don't want terrorists to have the rights. But if you're on the terrorist watch list and you're white, they definitely want you to still have guns. So it really does depend. Matt Martin says, interesting how the organizations that have been involved in hurting kids are overwhelmingly conservative. Yeah, weird how that works out. Okay, Nancy Phoenix says, I had to sleep in woods, leave state, Connecticut with 4 5-year-old children. Police no help. Father held me at gunpoint. Snow dragon. Jesus, I'm so sorry to hear that. Rebecca Hinson says it's a Johnny Pie. No, I know that's the idea. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Really do appreciate it. So many of you hit the like button, which warms my heart. I'm going to go rest my voice for a few minutes, but Yasmin Khan is going to be joining me. We're going to walk through all the news, some crazy video that you're not going to want to miss. Hope to see you in just a few.